All right, let's talk Michigan Wolverines. This is a program that's been in the news recently for a lot of reasons, but we're not talking about that because we're talking about the upcoming regular season. That's what everyone's here to talk about. College football is back. Opening week is right around the corner. Exciting news on that front for Michigan as they get ready for the 2024 campaign. I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, so this Wolverine squad obviously is all over the headlines for stuff that's really not having any impact to the players that are suiting up in a few short days. And it looks like there's one Michigan Wolverine that's set to have a massive impact. He's getting praise from a college football expert, and I think it's a great sign for the Wolverines for the regular season hopes. Let's pull up this report courtesy of SI.com. After waiting his turn behind guys like Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum, Michigan's senior running back, Donovan Edwards, finally gets his chance to be the featured tailback in the Wolverines offense in 2024. After struggling through much of the 2023 season, there's belief that Edwards will return to his 2022 form as Michigan's go-to option on offense this fall. One such believer is Fox Sports college football analyst Joel Klatt. Whatever you think of Klatt, smart guy, honest shooter, calls it as he sees them, right? Straight shooter is what I meant to say, honest guy, right? Checks every box. He doesn't have an agenda, really smart guy. He said he considered Edwards' odds to win the Heisman one of the best bets in terms of value in the sport this season. I mean, was Blake Corum a candidate to win it last year? Sure was, Clarence said. Was he the year before that, before he got hurt? He sure was. You think that Sharon Moore is not going to run this offense through the running back? I know Kalel Mullings is there. I know Alex Orji might be their quarterback Saturday night. Folks, Donovan will be the workhorse. He will be the guy that gets the bulk of the carries. He is the most talented guy, and he catches out of the backfield even better than Corum did. I think that's a true fact that people forget. So now he's going to be a dual threat running back. He's an every down back. He can hit the home run, and there's a chance, based on how much they might run the football, that he's going to inch close to 2,000 yards. I think that's a big key right there at the end of Joel Klatt's statements, is that Sharon Moore, we know he loves to run the football. He loves to run it a lot. I keep going back to the second half of that Penn State game. I think the fact that Klatt recognizes Edwards has a chance to win the Heisman, I think it's a great sign for Michigan going forward, because if Edwards has a good year, I think the Wolverines offense will as well. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but first, Wolverines fans, in the comment section below, regular season right around the corner. Now's your last chance, final chance. Give us your prediction for the Michigan Wolverines 2024 final record. Really curious what you guys have to say. Give us your prediction in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest Wolverines news?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with this news completely. I think there's a lot of good supporting evidence. I'm going to go over some of it. But mainly the first part is we talk about how successful Edwards has been at catching out of the backfield. I think it's a little understated at how good he is and how much better he was than Corum. Corum, in his career at Michigan, through 4 seasons, caught 56 passes for 411 yards. On the flip side, Edwards caught 30 passes for 250 yards last year. So through 4 years, 400 yards. Edwards pretty close to him in one season. He's got 714 receiving yards in 3 years at Michigan. This is a guy who I think brings a different dimension to the backfield for Michigan's when he is the workhorse. This is a guy who can really catch the ball out of the backfield. This is a guy who's going to be a very dynamic threat. As Klatt said, he can bring the home run as well. I think this is a really interesting statement here that people aren't catching on to, because Edwards is going to bring a lot to this backfield. I think you're going to be even or maybe even a little under Corum as far as pure running ability, but what he loses in a little bit of the rushing ability, he brings back in his pass catching ability as well. I think that's a big one. But the other fact here is, and it brings me back to a story that was just a few days ago of a Michigan coach saying that they think this team is going to be fine, whether it's Orji or whether it's Warren, whoever the quarterback is going to be for this team. They feel like this team is primed to win the national championship. And I think some people are taking that story the wrong way. I think the fact is, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is going to be, because like Klatt said, they're going to be running the offense through the running back. The quarterback doesn't really matter. Michigan is set up to be good no matter who's back there. Really, I could probably be back there, and Michigan would be just as good as they would be with either one of those guys. That, obviously a little bit of exaggeration, but the point made. I think Donovan Edwards is going to bring a lot to this offense, and I think Michigan is going to be in for one heck of a season.
I'm going to go back to a historical comparison. You go back to the 2010 era Alabama Crimson Tide. For those of you who remember, they had running back Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson on that team. Richardson was sort of the phenom out of Pensacola, Florida. Mark Ingram was the more established back. Ingram got a bulk of the carries, a bulk of the attention for a number of years. Richardson was the clear number two for a couple years, seen as a supremely talented physical phenom. And then when Mark Ingram finally left and went to the National Football League, Trent Richardson exploded, had a 21 touchdown season, went on to win the Heisman Trophy, right? So I think there's historical precedent. So with what we're seeing here with Edwards and Blake Corum last year, now just Edwards this year. And again, you want a little historical precedent for you that Alabama team won the national title 2 years after they had won it with Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson. So again, we're seeing a kind of theme here. When you have great, talented running backs, they've kind of waited for a few years. They usually have one super mega year in them, right? I think the Trent Richardson story is very common, very similar things throughout college football. And I think that's what we're going to get with Donovan Edwards. I think he's going to have an incredible year. I think 2,000 yards in terms of total yards from scrimmage, I think it's pretty much a guarantee because they're going to feed him the football in the running game, feed it in the passing game. And I know with all the headlines going around and all that kind of weird stuff talking about the past Michigan, this is a really talented football team, even still. Obviously, a lot of guys onto the National Football League, but they've got a really good roster. They're structured differently than other teams. So recruiting rankings and things like that don't quite indicate how good they are. I think they're going to be able to run the ball extremely well. I think Edwards will be just one of the great weapons in college football. I think he'll have a massive season. I think when it's all said and done, Michigan, Ohio State, it's going to come down to those two once again, and there's a good chance in the expanded college football playoff, Michigan and Ohio State both get in this year, regardless what happens the final regular season game of the season. So I think we're heading towards a really exciting year for Michigan fans. I think a lot of people are expecting Michigan to have a real dip, a real fall off. I don't see it. I see them easily as a 10-win team, and I think they head back to the playoff.